I'm on.
Here we go.
I hope it's going to be good, the before and after.
Yes, it'll be all good. Welcome everybody. Here we are. We're on the last throws here with the EPA, Cutz and Kōrero. An amazing time at Field Days. We've had some neighbours over here that we've all been watching each other throughout the time. There's been a bit of banter between us, all good too. Great crew getting our photo taken at the moment, which is great, over at DairyNZ over here, doing great work. And so I've got Andrea here. Welcome, Andrea. I know you were just saying it off camera, but just tell us briefly what you actually do for DairyNZ.
Sure, so I work on a project called The Vision is Clear. It is a program designed to raise awareness with the public mainly about all the great environmental work dairy farmers do.
Very good. We'll chat about that in a mo. But I've got a couple of questions just to kick things off. They're probably my two most important questions. The first one is, how would you like your hair cut?
Oh no.
Oh no.
Got some spectators.
Yeah, hang on. And we're, come on, jump in.
How you doing?
We're on the live, we're on the internet.
Live on the internet. Does that make it live?
Sorry.
Just a bit of thinning out, really, actually.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah.
You got thick hair.
I have.
Yeah. It's good shape.
Easier to cut it out than stick it in, right?
Right, that's very true. If I cut too much off, I've got plenty of spare stuff to stick back on. Hey, my second important question before I start, Sunday roast. Lamb, hogget, mutton, or something different?
Well, it'd have to be
Beef. Not good answer. I'm conducting a national po-up here, you see? And you can see lamb's actually like won the day big time. Beef was lagging behind, but you can see down the bottom there, is that my little bee down there?
It's quite tiny, yeah.
I do like to point out, I did have one wallaby, and I've had one vegetarian.
Representative
There you go.
of the general population.
That's right. That's the tough questions out of the way.
I've got a question for you.
Yes.
Can you multitask?
Yes.
Can you talk and cut hair?
Sometimes I'm not that good at it.
Right. Maybe more of the concentrating, less of the talking.
Thank you. Well, you do all the talking.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, so where do we want to start with this? Just tell us, I know that you're running a program over here, so just if you talk about that there.
The program that I work on?
Yep.
So I guess the background behind the program that I work on is that, there's a huge perception out there that dairy farmers are not friendly to the environment, and that we think that's very sort of unbalanced perspective on things. So we acknowledge that dairy certainly has had a part to play in the environment and poor environmental practices in the past, but that's certainly not the case, and there's a lot of work, a lot of love, and a lot of money and time invested in doing the right thing for the environment. So part of my job is to just raise awareness of that through sharing great stories, really, of the work dairy farmers and their families are doing.
Yeah. And we were just chatting a bit off here anyway about that there. And for me, as I was saying to you, as a bit of a city guy, coming here and having a chat, I back up what you say, like the stories that I've heard, some of the stuff from communities around and how those perceptions can be badly, in some cases, negatively put out there.
Yeah.
Which is part of why I thought it would be lovely to have you over here and have a bit of a chat about as such.
I guess we see it as a shared responsibility, really. Everybody has a part to play, be it waterways or planting, whatever. It's not just a us and them problem. There should be no urban-rural divide. This country belongs to all of us, and we all have a responsibility to do the right thing.
So your program's called that you're specifically, what's it called?
It's called The Vision is Clear.
Vision is Clear.
Yeah.
Just explain to me about that.
Working on waterways together. So I guess it's a partnership with New Zealand Herald, through radio, through just profiling, what we call visionary Kiwi success stories. So one of the farmers that we've profiled, for example, is an amazing farm up in Aka, and Aka out by Woku.
Where's Woku?
Oh my gosh, it's city fringe. So
Gotcha.
south of Auckland.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yep.
he's done some amazing work on his farm in terms of restoring waterways, because where he is basically the back end of the Waikato River, so everything that comes down the Waikato River ends up out of Port Waikato. He's done some amazing work in restoring all his wetlands, a lot at his own cost, building boardwalks, engaging the community, getting kids off schools down onto the farm, learning about the environment, doing some of the hard mahi. So we're just sharing stories such as his to, be representative of dairy farmers, really.
One of the things that strikes me, and that's a classic example of, working around kind of wetlands and keeping them healthy, restoring them, what have you, is the time that it takes.
That's right.
For that to actually, those changes to be effective.
Oh, yeah.
And plants have to grow.
That's right. And it's just like the time that it takes for the degradation to happen as well, some of these things have happened over generations, and whilst there's a definite sort of acknowledgement that there needs to be improvements, you can't just flick a switch and do it tomorrow. So you're right, it does take time, patience, love, and community.
Yeah, and that for me, one of the big learnings coming away from this is community.
Yeah.
That it is a real the farming sector's a community, they're within wider communities. It's not just one person on a farm doing their thing.
No, that's right. Yeah, and I think throughout the country, lots of communities they do look to the dairy farmers to lead these things. I know of another example down in Otago in the Pomahaka River. There's a catchment group that's been formed down there, and that was started by a group of dairy farmers sort of catching up over a beer at the pub going, hey, we've got to do something about this, and let's get some action going. So, not only are they doing great stuff on the farm, but for the wider community, they've got nurseries growing to propagate seeds, to plant natives, and people come and volunteer and do all that, and it's really good to see.
And we were chatting a bit before we came here, also for some beaning communities where they feel the pressure, and we were talking about some of the mental health of that.
Yeah,
something to...
It's just that, I guess, that feeling of an unfair perception, really, that dairy farmers are responsible for all the damage to the environment, and that sense of unfairness, really, when it's not true. Yes, they have a role to play, everybody has a role to play, and it does affect their mental well-being and sense of pride. And who doesn't want to be able to not be proud to stand up and say you're a hairdresser or a has-been hairdresser? We want to be proud. We want our dairy farmers to feel proud of what they're doing.
Sorry, I'm getting a not at the moment.
2 minutes.
Sorry.
They're the backbone of the country. They really are.
It's a little bit like being Christian.
Do you I don't know, like, what's a message out there, do you think, in terms of, and if I think about, maybe if this was a message going to people that were quite disconnected from rural life, city dwellers, I guess, is the main thing. Have you got something that you'd like to kind of share with them, or?
Well, I guess the message of, if you're disconnected,
we finished
then connect. Actually, maybe get out on a farm and have a look and understand what it is. One, what it is, what it takes to run a dairy farm, but two, the amazing work that these people do beyond their business,
And the other thing I've been fascinated by is the family aspect of, a lot of the farms and what have you.
Yeah, definitely.
And just kind of understanding maybe a little bit of a difference between a farm that's running as a family setup as opposed to maybe a bit more of a kind of a big, I don't know if corporate's the right word, but more of a, the larger kind of business-based setups.
I mean, I think probably there's a perception that that's the way farming's moved, but it's still very much grassroots, Kiwi family stuff. Yeah.
And what about an event like Field Days where we are? What does that kind of provide, do you think?
I think it's an opportunity for farmers, families to connect, and also for more provincial and urban people to connect as well.
Yeah. Well, like I was saying to you, a lot of my audience that'll probably be watching this or viewer are city-based. And I know after now I've had my first visit here, I would tell anybody to get along.
Yeah, totally.
My first day coming and turning up here, the first thing that blew me away was just the breadth of the farming industry, really.
Totally,
It's enormous.
Farming, agriculture, and all the associated businesses, right?
Yeah.
I'm a city girl. I was for 35 years.
Yep.
And I've lived down here now for 6, and this is my first field days. So there you go.
Oh, is that right?
And I do remember moving down thinking, what's the big deal? The schools are off on Friday, and but it's really cool. With lots of like-minded people with doing lots of amazing things.
Have you had at all much of an opportunity to get a look around?
No, not really.
I was going to ask you some of your favourite places.
I did go and have a look at the tiny homes, but...
The tiny homes?
Yeah.
Where are they? I missed them.
Oh, down there, down by the trees.
Somewhere,
yeah.
Who knows, one of the things that strikes me is that, farmers are obviously very busy people, farming the whole time, and that this probably becomes a bit of a place where they can have some time off the farm.
That's exactly right. I was speaking to one lady whose husband is a sheep and beef farmer, actually, and she said it's just a good opportunity for him to get off the farm for 5 days, and I'd say that's probably a once a year thing. It's 24/7, right?
That's right. So a couple of questions relating to where we are, in terms of, the shearing shed, but as we said before we got here, the Environmental Protection Authority. What does environmental protection mean to you?
Oh, for me it's guardianship of the land, really. For future generations.
Any specifics that you particularly would love to kind of see some work around, or?
Well, clearly waterways are an important topic. All Kiwis love the water. We sort of play in it and eat from it, and that's important. And we're surrounded by water, so it's important that we protect our waterways. Obviously, climate change is a massive topic of conversation. That's heading up. Excuse the pun. That's a really tricky area. There's lots and lots of research going into how we can make improvements there. But again, the long-term solutions, there's no quick fix.
That's right, no quick fixes. That's the thing.
Yeah, and I think we can proudly say that New Zealand dairy farmers have the lowest carbon footprint of dairy farmers throughout the world, but that's not a reason to stay still. We've still got to do our bit and keep progressing and make improvements. I mean, the better you are, the harder it is to make efficiencies, but certainly lots of work going on in that area. Even things like, what we're feeding the cows. There's research being done into a particular type of seaweed that means there's less methane emitted from cows. So, and that's been proven overseas, but it's quite different in New Zealand. Our cows feed off open pastures, a little less easy to control what they're eating out of feed buckets, for example. So, some really cool, fascinating research being done in areas like that.
So with all of that in mind, what are some things that you'd love to see? Thinking time frames here, longer time frames. What are some things that you'd love to see, say, over the next 30 years, as one of the time frames that these guys have been talking about? Things that you'd maybe like to see, or whether you talk about that from your own point of view, or from your industry's point of view?
Yeah, gosh, it's a hard one, isn't it?
It's a big question,
It's a big question.
Yeah,
I'd definitely like to see improvement, that's for real, but you know, across the board. I think it's really important that we educate our kids. Certainly for me, you know, growing up, it wasn't something that we spoke about. We didn't learn about it at school. And I know there's a lot more work goes into, you know, educating the younger generation. I think that's really important.
Yeah, good answer. That's good. In fact, that brings up a really interesting thing I've definitely picked up on while I've been here. Is a little bit of the generational difference stuff. Do you guys get a bit of that coming through? You know, that the younger ones just find it a bit easier to comprehend what's going on.
They feel a sense of obligation, you know, like, again, it's really tricky, like, the older generation, when you talk about farming, for example, they did what they did with the knowledge that they had, you know, like, so there's no, say, recklessness or disregard. It's just that, you know, technology changes and information changes and farming practices change. So, I think we're a little bit more informed and a little bit proactive, like the younger generation, in terms of thinking about the wider implications of everything we're doing. You know, not just the farming, but in the home, for example.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You know, that's really good. And the other thing I think about, with the generational thing, is the influence of technology. Is the other thing that I've kind of heard about. It's evident to me how much is going on in that space. So I spent some time this morning at the Innovation Centre over here. You know, do you see technology obviously playing a bigger role as time goes on?
Technology and information, you know,
Sorry, we're just going to have a quick
You look amazing, by the way.
Stop it!
Like, you looked amazing before, but now.
Come in here. Sorry, backs to the audience. We've got a man with a half-shaven mohawk mullet turned up.
It's a mohawk.
Police have turned up because we're causing lots of trouble here.
They've come after me. I'm committing fashion crimes.
Oh yeah, love one.
I know, that's not what I'm...
New phone number?
That's not on my menu, is it?
No, it's no mitigation mullets here. The boys in blues are back. I've already given you one free haircut. I'm not giving you another free haircut, eh? Had one of your guys in earlier for a haircut. Yeah, totally. Yeah, fridge magnets are great. Love them all. I'll put it there proudly. Not just 111, 105. 105, that's for the non-essential, eh? Non-essential. There you go, fridge magnets from the police. They're not here to taser us.
The police had a photo with Rosie the cow over here before.
Oh yeah, well I gave one of them a haircut. Yeah, he was great actually. I tell you the thing that blew me away that he chatted
I will
about.
see you again at some stage in the future.
Oh, I thought you were going to say I'm going to ring up and complain about your haircuts or something.
My wife is cutting it. She's doing a period.
Hey, great job. Love your work. All good.
But love it anyway.
Loves her. You love her work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally. What a classic. Well done.
So are we going to need to take this now, my bro?
Oh yeah, go for it.
Yeah, have a good one.
Yeah, just watch out. There's lots of hair in there.
All good, my man.
All good. Lovely. There you go. Getting our don't know what we're going to do with your hair.
Oh well.
All good. We're just about finished here. The thing, and I was just going to relate this back to a bit of what we were talking about. The thing that the police officer spoke to me about, which I thought was gorgeous, was the work that's gone on in mental health for them.
Right.
And this is just such a huge topic these days, isn't it? That, you know, as a wider society, we're only just really starting to understand. And we were talking a bit about over there, you know, just in terms of like, I don't know, just people not being too harsh on each other. I guess that's the thing. And maybe media has a role to play there.
Yes, social media in particular.
Yeah.
One of the channels we have with the Vision is Clear is a social media channel, and we have a reasonably full-time moderator.
It's all right.
I don't know what's wrong with humans, but it's in our nature to hate. And you know, you can hide behind that screen, and people are really nasty. And there's a lot of finger pointing and blame that goes on. And we see it a little bit with the urban, rural, you know, and like, guys, actually we're all in this together. We all have a responsibility.
Yep.
I think.
And we're all human.
Seek to understand somebody else's point of view and the impact that you have on other people's words, actually. Yeah.
Good message, good message. I like that, that's good. Can I ask you this?
I don't know. What is it?
Remember I said you don't have to, but you know, what role does government kind of play in all of this, do you think?
Well, they have a huge role to play, right? Because they set policy and they make legislation, and that's had a huge impact on farmers. And there's political footballs all the time, you know. And
Very
okay,
good. You're so right.
if the government's doing it for the right reason, that's cool. But if they're just doing it for votes, for potentially ill-informed public, then that's a problem. Yeah.
Very well answered. You know, and on that there, I mean, that's where I was kind of getting to, actually, the kind of the political whims that can come and go. But also, one of the things I've picked up in the time here is effective communication. So, you know, like we were speaking to somebody yesterday that started up a group somewhere around here, and forgive me, I can't remember their name, where they're trying to get all the regulations and everything into one central point. Because actually then, you know, one of the things I've heard from farmers that I've spoken to is like it's hard to know exactly what those regulations are. Where do I go to find out? You know, they don't have time to necessarily. Yeah. You got anything to kind of say around that?
It does differ by region, and it can be a bit of a minefield trying to, like I say, negotiate what those are, especially when they change all the time.
Is that a bit of your role?
Not mine in particular, but DairyNZ definitely.
Yep.
So we've got info lines, 0800 numbers, happy to advise, consulting officers out in the field to help navigate through a lot of that stuff. Because you're right, farmers are busy. I mean, they don't just milk cows. They run businesses, they're accountants, they're environmental people, they have families, they, you know, do the books.
Totally. And I've learnt this week the wives usually do the books. I've had a few farmers say to me, I'm like, oh, Zero over here, do you use that? Sorry, I don't want to really shout out for Zero, but anyway, there they are.
No, they're amazing actually.
No, they are actually.
Yeah.
And they've been great neighbours, I've got to say. And they're like, and the most common answer I've had is like, oh, you better talk to the wife about that there. So that's an interesting dynamic.
Oh, I think it's the same in lots of small businesses. We think about plumbers and mechanics and, you know, behind every successful man.
Yep. And understanding the kind of, and you guys would have more of an insight into that, but you know, income, how to kind of budget, you know, like farmers don't get constant.
Yep, cash flow,
Yep, that's
so
huge stuff.
Staffing, rostering, their employers, they've got to be big on health and safety, you name it, it's everything. Yeah.
Going on.
Yeah.
Look, I'm pretty much coming towards the end of your haircut. And you can see I've been quite gentle. I've just tried to thin out a bit up here and what have you.
Yeah.
And I've tried to leave you a little bit so your next hairdresser at Friday or something has got something to do as well. Because I don't want to like just take business off everything.
What?
Yeah. You got any last things that you might just want to add or anything like that here?
No, not really. Everyone does their little bit. Everyone's got a role to play, and be kind.
I was just going to say that.
Kind.
Brilliant. That's a great.
Yeah.
Sorry, buddy. We'll just finish up here in a moment. Great line to finish on, because I was going to say the same. Hey, anybody out there, be kind. It's the big thing. Don't turn into the angry keyboard warrior.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, we don't need that there. That was all. I really appreciate you giving me some time here. I know that it's always a bit with these things, but I told you I'd be gentle, and I think I was. Yeah, so awesome. Thanks very much, Andrea. Cheers.